Welcome back to Up Front. It was one of the big stories of the February primary in Wisconsin. Democratic State Senator Chris Larson finishing first in the race for Milwaukee County Executive. Larson narrowly edged out incumbent Chris Abele for the top spot, setting up a Larson-Abele showdown for April 5th. This week and next, we're talking with the candidates in the race for Milwaukee County Executive, and we begin with Senator Chris Larson. Senator, it's good to have you back on the program.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
So what was your take? Some people were very surprised by the results in earlier this month. How about you?
Yeah, I think we had a pretty good idea that the momentum was at our back, and it's continued since then. I mean, the fact that we were outspent 20-1. I talked to some friends who thought that was a typo, but no, he spent over $2 million to our $100,000, and we still came out on top by 708 votes. And I think it shows, look, people know my reputation for standing up for working families, that I'm a community voice and going to make sure that the community has a voice in the county's highest office. I think people are ready to move the county forward once again.
So you and the county executive now had your first forum, the Public Policy Forum event recently. And during that you said that in your first 100 days, one of the first things you wanted to do was go to Madison and repeal the power grabs that you say the county executive has undertaken. How are you going to do that? In a legislature controlled by Republicans, with a Republican governor, you're a Democrat. How are you going to do that?
Yeah, well, first off, I would say, look, just because there's Republicans in charge now doesn't mean that's always going to be the case, right? We're going to have an election this fall. But in the meantime, I would argue that some of this legislation was stuff that the current county executive was lobbying for himself. And they saw it as maybe a personal favor just to him. And I think the fact that it's clear from the election last week, as well as what's going to happen in April, that people are ready to turn the page. And maybe they designed it for him as a partner, but having me in there, I don't think they necessarily want to give all of this power. And I think the argument will sell a little bit more based off that. But to be clear, I won't be county executive forever. And we want to make sure that it's not just going to be up to one person who's having a bad day who decides that we can start getting rid of the airport, the zoo, the museum, and other parkland without public input. And the other power grabs you saw.
The American-style check and balance, what are you talking about?
Well, the idea that we have a $500 million airport, that we have the zoo, the museum, and this other land that the current county executive lobbied to be able to have the power to sell without county board approval, without a public hearing. I think that just shocks a lot of people. So what we're looking for is to make sure that there's a restored legislative balance, that there can't be one person who gets in there and starts to go nuts and starts selling off assets that we've built up for generations. So it's about making sure that at the very least, it has to go through a public hearing, it has to go through the county board before we make major changes in our infrastructure like that.
You're not suggesting that we go back to the way things were with the county board, with the full-time county board, full-time salaries, that they had the responsibilities they once had? You're not saying that?
No, we're not going to relitigate every piece of the past. What I think is important is, yes, people thought that people voted in the referendum to put the county board at part-time status and diminish their pay. But what I think has erred is the county executive moving forward and thinking that that was a referendum on him being able to have unilateral power. And to be clear, he's got this power over land, and he's never explained why he wants it and what he intends to do with it. And the opposite is true, where he's actually going to Madison to try and get more power. He's got a bill that he wants to get near unilateral authority on budgeting, which is quite scary. He had one that got pulled out of the budget at the last minute that would have given him near unilateral authority on policy making. That gets to be where it gets to be a little bit scary. Have one person with all of that power. And when we have conversations with people, they don't want that. They don't want it for him. They don't want it for me. They don't want it for anybody. We're Americans. We want to have a check and a balance.
The county executive has said, he's been focused on dealing with the deficit and the debt for the county. That's important. That is that's got to be done before you can do all of the other things, as he says, before you can restore services. You're talking about a fairly ambitious agenda. You're talking about a living wage. You're talking about reducing bus fares, doing more work on the parks to improve them. How are we going to pay for all that?
Yeah, I think it's about having that balance of where we set our priorities, where we set our budget year after year. And I get that the county executive, the current one, has focused on trying to reduce debt. But what he hasn't done...
Do you think that was right for him to do that?
I think you have to look at the entire picture, right? You have to look at the don't look at the county as a spreadsheet, right? It's a community, and you have to make sure that there is a sustained quality of life, that people are proud to live here, people are happy to live here, and that you're planning long term so more people want to come and live here. here, right? Let me give you a clear example. If you're not planning ahead, that's the difference, and say we're going to just focus on paying down debt, that's the difference between a closed domes and an open domes, where last year there was a $5 million surplus. Some folks wanted to put that forward to start addressing deferred maintenance in our parks, including at the domes, and he got in the way of that and said no. So if we're not paying for those things up front, we're going to pay for them on the back end. That's what we're trying to do, is making sure that instead of doing budget gimmicks every time there's a budget rolling around, we're looking long term of where we want to go as a community. That's what this is about.
To be continued. And I say that because next week on Upfront, I'll be talking to the incumbent Milwaukee County Executive Chris Abele, and both men, Senator Larson and County Executive Abele, will be my guests Wednesday, March 9th for a live debate. It'll be at 7 p.m. at Marquette University Law School, broadcast live on WISN TV and live streamed on WISN.com. Senator Larson, good to have you here with us today.
Thank you.
Next, what do Wisconsin voters want to see happen with that U.S. Supreme Court vacancy, and how do they feel about the presidential frontrunners, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton? And remember, you can keep the conversation going throughout the week by following me at Mike Boucher on Twitter.